All right, welcome to Quixotic Heights, the podcast where we explore the winding paths that lead us to who we are becoming. Today's guest is award-winning romantasy author Jennifer Lees, creator of the Arlan's Pledge series and the Community Chronicles series. Jen's road to writing is anything but conventional. She spent decades serving others as a nurse in outback Australia and a midwife trained in the UK. She also ran a children's home in Nairobi and served in Christian ministry across regional Australia. Without formal training and creative writing, Jenny taught herself the craft through courses, conferences, and sheer determination, eventually turning lived experience, compassion, and courage into richly imagined fantasy worlds. After retiring from nursing and returning to Scotland in 2023, she now writes full-time, bringing stories of love, resilience, and hope to readers around the world. And today we'll talk about reinvention, learning the craft later in life, and how a lifetime of caregiving shapes the stories we tell. So with that, Jenny, welcome to Quixotic Heights. How are you?
Hello, Amy, and thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. I'm very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. And for those who are going to be watching this podcast, I would love them to see what you're wearing because I got a sneak peek of it. So let's kick off with that. What are you wearing, and tell us what that is.
Well, let me get my other piece of equipment.
Okay.
This is what I wear when I do my author talks and when I sell my books at craft stalls and launch nights and things like that. It's a mishmash, really. It's not totally like medieval or ancient Celtic dress or anything like that, but it's leather armor with the taste of Scotland.
Yeah.
My sword is fake. I would love a real sword, but being out in the public, I don't want to risk anybody getting hurt.
Yes.
First of all, me. But so my dream is to have a real sword, but if I did still, I wouldn't take it out in the public. I use my fake sword, but that's good enough. It gives you the impression.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And, the leather armor is kind of cool. I don't know. You look like a badass to me. So
I'm really quite sweet.
I know you are. And so let's talk about your quixotic dream. I'd like to kick that off with my guests on, them sharing what their dreams are.
Well, I've always had a story going on in my head, right from a child. Yes, daydreamer. And I wanted to, I've written poetry all along, but I wanted to write a story in about my 20s. I even had the plot for a time travel romance, which I showed to a friend, and her sister was a librarian, and she just laughed at me, and I didn't write it. And I think I've regretted that ever since. But of course, I've done my nursing, got married, had kids and all that lot. So when my children left home, and I've still got this story going, a story, not the same one, because I've always had stories in my head, all of that was happening. And it's like, Jenny, start writing them down. So my dream was to tell my stories. But like you said, telling a story isn't just it. It's you've got to learn this skill, particularly if you're going to write it as a novel. There's a particular skill. So, my dream was to write stories, write them as novels, and to get them published. But like you said, I started late in life. I wrote my first novel, and I gave it to one of my daughters who was at the time doing a creative writing course at university, and she looked at it and she said, "Mum, this is author notes, screenplay. You've got to learn how to write a novel if you want to sell books, So I'm like, oh, okay. So not having had any formal training I did English in high school, but nothing else. I studied sciences because I was going to be a nurse. I had to start from scratch, doing courses, going to writers' conventions and conferences, and buying craft books and reading through them and studying them. To fulfill my dream, I had to learn how to do it. And thinking about it being a quixotic dream, sometimes when it comes to selling them, to getting my stories out there, I love writing them and telling them, but getting them out there for others to read them. With the millions of books that are out there, that sometimes feels like I am tilting at windmills, because it just is just nebulous and impossible dream sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's my dream, to write my stories and to get them out there to share with other people.
Yeah, and you're doing that. You're achieving that for sure. Tell us a little bit about your books, your series.
Okay, well, I generally write fantasy and with a romantic element in it, because you've always got to have a bit of romance, I say. So the first series I wrote was a futuristic thing, and all my stories so far have been set in Scotland. It does inspire me. This Community Chronicles was what if there was a stock market crash and the world never recovered and we all had to go back to basics. So I have a group of people that survive in the Highlands that are community people, back to basics, making their own paper, everything, living off the land, preppers, that kind of lifestyle. And then there's, I've imagined that there's a government bunker under Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, and that's where the government drew in all their minds, all of the clever people, and were, living and starting to get ready to survive again. But it's really, there's time travel in it. There's that conflict between those two societies, but it's mainly about, well, there's a love story, but it's also about, it's funny when you read, when you, I'm going off track here, and I'm sure I'll do this more than once. But when you write stories, and I noticed this in the other series that I've written, Arlan's Pledge, the themes don't always come out until you've written them. Mm. And when I look at both of these series, as well as seeing people that have to realise what they're meant to be doing and digging deep and doing it, one of my themes is what makes a good leader. So I noticed in this Community Chronicles series, I've got people that are having to rise to be leaders, but they're natural leaders, and the same idea in my fantasy series that I've written, which is a portal fantasy. This world part of it is set in Scotland, and the other world is a world that I've made up, which I've drawn very heavily from Scottish history, Scottish geography, the Scottish peoples, Scottish environment, and I made a fantasy world which I've called Delcruine, which is very much like a mixture of things. It's a mixture of medieval Scotland and ancient Celtic Scotland, but it's got dragons, like my dragon, and it's got it's got magic and that sort of thing. And again, it's got people that realise what their destiny is, albeit a destiny that I've destined for them, being the author, but they've got to dig deep and rise to the occasion and draw on their inner resources to face the challenge of that.
Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into writing stories and novels, particularly fantasy, because you are doing the world building and you got to have a map and all that stuff. Do you have someone that you use to create your maps for you?
Well, I actually draw the maps myself as I'm writing, because I really need to keep track of where everybody is. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to pan to my wall, but my wall has all my maps that I've drawn as I've gone along on it. But yes, I have a professional map maker who, she's also an author, who it digitalizes them for me. Does them in the format to put in my books. But yeah, I need to have the world in my head, because geography very much affects people's lives and affects your story. And like I said, because I have more than one character doing things, I need to know where everyone is.
Yeah. Well, location itself can be a character, right?
Yes.
Either an antagonist or a protagonist, the villain or the hero. What were some of the things you had to research, to write your stories? And was there anything that was kind of an epiphany moment for you?
Research. Well, interestingly enough, with the Community Chronicles series, I didn't have to research a lot. And I don't mean that I know everything about survival, but I was a girl guide, and that's a good, and we did a lot of camping. My mum was a really good guide leader and she was really good at camping. So I know how to survive in the bush. I did an army survival course. And I've just sort of kept tabs of, living in the basics. So no, I didn't have to do much research for that. I thought ahead to what the world would be like if this and this and this happened, But with my Arlan's Pledge series, because and not all fantasies end up like this, but this fantasy, because of the conflict that was going on in Arlan's world, would end up with war and with a battle. And, the third book has a big battle in it, but of course there's magic and stuff involved. I actually had to study war for a bit. And when it was taking me down that path, I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I want to, but I had to, So I studied the way the Romans did war and the medieval, like the Da Vinci engines and things like that, and trebuchets, had to study all of that. And I found it really interesting in the end. But the thought of me having to think about and like the intricacies of war and what you have to think about in war, that bothered me. Probably because I'm a nurse, the injuries and things like that didn't bother me because I was okay with that and I could draw on my life experience. Not that I've ever been a nurse in a war, but I worked as a remote area nurse, so we were always the first on the scene and there weren't any doctors around, so we were it. So I drew on that experience. Having an epiphany, probably, I don't really know, to be honest. Whether I had an epiphany was just, I've got to study war. Yeah, it's interesting, but there's a lot going on. It's not just people fighting; it's all the stuff in the background. That was interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you definitely have to have that epic battle or whatever,
Yeah. Yes.
What I find fascinating is that you've lived across several continents, right? I mean, you tell us more about how those experiences shaped your life because you were in the UK, you were Australia, Scotland, Kenya. Like, how did that all come about? And how did that translate to the storytelling on your pages?
Ooh. Well, I started off being a nurse in Melbourne, Victoria. Then I did a bit of travel overseas and I came over to Scotland and did Europe, Scandinavia, all those wonderful places, but realised my heart was back in Scotland. I then went, because my ancestry is in this part of the world. I then went back to Australia and worked as a remote area nurse. Like I said, it was, we held clinics and we did have a flying doctor who came in once a month, but the rest of the time it was us. So, I could suture and set bones and all that sort of thing. I had a very experienced woman I worked with that I learned a lot from. And then I got into midwifery in Scotland, so I studied as a midwife. And then we went back to Australia via Kenya for 3.5 years, where my husband ran a children's home. And just living in Africa was an incredible experience. There's just, you can do this much, and for the good of the people, it's that much. You know what I mean? And the Kenyans are incredible people, difficult lives, but they smile and they laugh and they're community. And to be honest, at times I didn't feel safe, but the experience was one I'll never forget. And we had our 2 small children there, and they learnt to speak a number of languages, and our son is actually a polyglot. He can speak about 7 languages now because his language centre was switched on when he was young, And so then we went to Australia, where Frank was ministering in a country town. The potato fields and the cows were out the back of the church and everything, and that was great. That was just living in community, but. And then I went back into nursing and worked as an oncology nurse till I retired last year. And like I said to you in the written interview, I am a people watcher. I think most authors are. I think we find people fascinating, and I've seen people at the best and the worst times of their lives, and seen how people react and how they cope or not cope. And I think I draw heavily on all of my life's experience and all my experience of people, putting them into my characters and how they react to what I'm subjecting them to as the author.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's all just, I try to make rich characters, you know. I spend a lot of time on them before I even, like, I have an idea of a plot, a story, and I know the place I'm going to put them in, because currently it's this world I've imagined. But then I spend some time thinking about my main characters and all of the layers that make up a person, you know, their background, their early life experience, their intelligence level, their physical abilities, and all that sort of thing. Yeah, drawing heavily from a lifetime of being with people. Yeah, and I put that all into my characters. Yeah.
Just one quick question. When you said that you guys ran a children's home in Kenya, is that like an orphanage?
Yes, yeah. My husband was the chief administrator of the children's home. Yeah.
I see. I see. Okay. So what did you learn about the writing process in terms of discovering yourself? Like your writing, what is it about you that you discovered in your writing journey?
About me. Just sometimes I surprise myself. And I know you're an author too, Amy. Sometimes, you've written something and you're told, write your story, leave it, come back to it. And then when you read it again, you're like, did I write that? That sounds all right. Or it doesn't, I don't know how to answer that question, to be perfectly honest. I just learned that I have skills, and there's lots of things I have to work at, but there's things that just come naturally.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, like, when I did the same thing with my journey, right? Like, I took courses and workshops, and I went to conferences, and I learned what the different genres were, what the tropes were, what the hero's journey were. I read the Save the Cat to understand the beats and all that mechanical stuff, right? But at the end of the day, what I learned is that I can plot all I want, and I will always deviate from the plot, right? So I'm the the seat of my pants kind of writer. So yeah, I was just kind of curious if that was something, if what you may have discovered for yourself as you were writing. And
from that point of view, as a writer, well, the first novel I wrote, which was just a story that just came to me, and at times I couldn't even keep up with it. And I'm like to the two main characters, slow down, I didn't quite catch that. What did you say again? It was just happening. And I would say that being a pantser. And that was a book that I gave to one of my daughters who's a reader. And she went, Mom, this is like a book that you could buy. Like this reads like a novel. I go, oh, really? but what I learned was that I have no control of my characters. That's what I've learned. You can have your idea of your plot, and if you shape your characters well enough, and if you know them well enough, and they talk to you as they do. We're not mad, us authors, but our characters talk to us. And as you throw them into that world, and they just do their thing, you learn you have no control. And oftentimes that's the best way for a story to go. I've got this big, you can't see it, I've got this big sign on my wall here that says agency, right? So you throw them in and you let them decide what to do, and
that is so true, because I don't think, if you're not a novelist, you wouldn't understand that your characters do talk to you at all day, all the time. It could be 5 o'clock in the morning, or when you're doing something and they're like, my story needs to be told, and this is what needs to be happening. And you get attached to your characters that you've created because they've been living in your head and your heart for so long. So yeah. And that's why they say, it truly is your baby. And when you do publish, it's birthing a baby, a book baby, but the hard part is, I think, handing it over to an editor, having someone critique it, but then also having the readers, read it and giving you reviews. Can you share a little bit about maybe, a reader who really made you feel amazing as a writer, but then also maybe a review that kind of questioned questioned your
Oh.
work?
Well, I was just thinking about this the other day. When I had released 3 of the 4 books in the Community Chronicles, it was 2020 COVID, and I got they left a reader left a message on my website saying, "Thank you for your books. I wasn't well this year, and reading them got me through it." And I'm like, wow. It was just one person that it really helped. So it was worth writing that whole series,
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. I have a free novella which is like a prequel to that Community Chronicles series, and I have had a review from someone that said this was boring just as well it was free. So you get you get reviews like that, and but you also get people going, "Oh, this is great, so different," But what do? You have to. I even heard people say you shouldn't even read reviews.
Yeah. As when you're a new author, like I don't know, most of us, I feel like we're obsessed with reviews because we want validation,
Mm-hmm.
But then after a while, when you're a little bit more seasoned, you're like, yeah, I have
Yeah,
better things to do than turn into knots,
yeah,
reviews, whether they're
yeah.
good or really
And
bad.
that's like not everyone is going to like every story you tell.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I'm like in a very nice way say to people, well, if you don't like it, you don't have to read it. You know what I mean? There's plenty of people that'll like it and enjoy it. It's for them, because you can't please all the people all the time. And I think that's one thing you have to settle with in yourself as an author. Not everybody's going to like your stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
in a way, you're just writing it for those that will.
Right. So in a world where, there's over 3 million books
Mm,
published every year, how
yeah.
do you stand out and reach your readers?
Yeah, how do you? That's the question. That
That is a
really
million
is.
dollar question.
I tell you what, when I thought about the things that I like and the things that I don't like about writing, I love the creative process. And maybe I'm a little bit weird, but I love editing because I love the English language and making it sound good. But when it comes to marketing, I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Where do
Yeah.
I start? What worked for that launch isn't working for that launch. What worked for this book and the same series isn't working for the next one. And I've tried this and I've tried that, and it just you know, what do you do to stand
Yeah.
out? I at the moment am settling to meeting people in person, the small increments, the people that I meet at these craft stalls. I don't always sell any of my books, but boy, do I talk to people about books and novels and what they like and what they enjoy. And they always I've got a card or a bookmark with my website and my Patreon site on it. And if they're registered after they've spoken to me, they can look and do whatever. But I'm slowly getting when I'm out that way. You know what I mean? I think that's the way to do it. I mean, I have a website, like I said, have a Patreon site, have social media and all of that. But to be honest, I really struggle with trying to get Amazon ads to work. And I know I'm not the only author who does. They're not easy. I mean, Amazon's wonderful, and that's where people go to buy books. That's where I go to buy books most of the time. But the advertising, it's just beyond me at times. So
Yeah, it is one of our Achilles heel, right?
yeah.
Because we love the creative process. And we can spend 10 years writing a book and working for free. The creative process is we're
Yes.
not paying ourselves. But then when it comes to the marketing and advertising, we do have to, shell out the money that we weren't getting paid to write this book.
Yes.
And yeah, it is hard, but I run ads on Amazon, and for a while it was doing really well, but now it's tapering off. And I think it's because I'm not actively creating new campaigns, because you have to
Yes.
start the algorithm,
Yeah.
And the more campaigns you run, the more valid
Yeah.
your ads are, to make it work. So, but it is a lot of work, and
Yeah.
so if there's a secret sauce out there, somebody needs to tell us
Yes,
what it is.
please. Please do. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your nursing, because I'm sure you've experienced so many people, so many, situations. Do you find that a lot of that experience or the people that you meet go into your stories?
Oh, the experiences definitely.
Hmm.
Because in well, in my books anyway, someone always gets hurt. So I I think, and this is probably just an automatic thing for me. My main female characters, maybe I should have a male character like this at some time, but my main female characters are healers. They always know what to do in a crisis. They always know how to stitch someone up. They always know how to heal them with magic. You know what I mean? It just tends to be an automatic thing that I put into my characters. But yes, I draw heavily from the experiences I've had. Like I'm editing a book at the moment that's just about to go to my professional editor, and I've got my mage healing a leg, but it's a fractured leg in a small child. And when I was a remote area nurse, we had because there was a school in the small town that we lived and worked in. Child fell down the stairs. He was only about 9, and this really experienced woman that I worked with, who was also a remote area nurse and a midwife, and she lived in Papua New Guinea for years. She even started up a nursing school in Papua New Guinea and got an Order of Australia for her work. She actually, she set the boy's leg, and we put some skin traction on until the flying doctor could come. And I've actually used that same experience, adding a bit of magic into this scene where my mage is healing this lad's leg who got trod on by a warhorse. So yes, I do use all my experience.
Because
yes. Yeah.
You should be flexing your nursing prowess and your muscles, and because I think a good book not only entertains, of course, but it has to educate our readers, right? And whether that be, fixing an injury or what, a little bit of the cultural background of the the Scottish or whatever. I mean, it's important to have those elements in there. And they say, write what you know. So I think it's beautiful that you're sharing your knowledge and your creativity, right, through your books. So, I'm still curious about the whole children's house in Nairobi because I've always wanted to go to Kenya or Africa, and experience some of that. Do you have any advice or tips for travelers who are coming to Kenya?
Okay, so Kenya for me was about 25 years ago.
Okay.
So things may have changed.
Yeah. Okay.
Just the usual travel tips if you're traveling. But I'd be on a tour. I'd do it on a tour, or I definitely, if you were, going to work in a children's home, make sure you know the people and that you have a secure place to stay, and to just enjoy yourself and absorb yourself in the culture.
Yeah.
Pardon?
And the food.
Oh yeah, and don't not eat the food, especially at the feasts when the intestines are passed around and the eyes are passed around. Don't say no to new experiences with the food.
Yeah, absolutely. It's embracing the culture and full immersion, right? I mean, that's how you're supposed to do it.
And things sorry.
Go ahead.
And things will stick to you, like you can't have lived in Africa for any amount of time and then come back to particularly a Scottish church and stand still when you're singing. Sorry, I dance around when I sing because that's that's the legacy.
Yeah.
You gotta dance when you sing. Yeah.
I love it. So your publishing journey, tell us a little bit more about that. Did you go the traditional route? Did you self-publish? What was your path?
Well, I originally self-published. I did have my first book. I sent it off to I was at a writers' conference and I had a critique session with a publisher. It wasn't actually a pitch session or anything. It was just what do you think of my work? And she gave me some advice, and I said, well, can I submit it to your publishing house? And I did, and all that. And they didn't want it. And I've submitted to a few publishing houses along the way with different stories, and they've not been accepted. One, actually, the first book in the series of Arlan's Pledge, they say that if they send you back with a whole lot of do this, do that, then you know that perhaps you're on a good track, and they might want to change it a bit. But I felt they wanted too much changed. And I was like, this is how I see this world. This is my story. This is my world. No, sorry. So I didn't resubmit it. But oddly enough, every publishing house, mind you, they're all small publishers, but every publishing house that I submitted to, not long after, have folded. So maybe I better not submit to anymore because I make them fold. But anyway, no, I value my creativity, and yes, I'll take advice, and yes, I'll listen to my editor for improvement and that. But I don't want my creativity stifled, and I want that freedom. And it is so easy to self-publish these days. It isn't cheap, and it isn't easy work, and it isn't not frustrating, and it isn't easy to market, but I'd prefer to be doing all that myself. And like, even if my books were traditionally published, I'd still have to do a lot of the work for marketing. So a couple of times I've thought, oh, maybe I'll submit this. And then I've thought, well, I still have to do just as much work. So I may as well do it myself, and I may as well get, instead of, a few cents per book sold, I'll get a little bit more, you know what I mean? Not that we make millions, as you know, because we've got all these expenses. We have to pay editors and covers and map makers and all those courses we go to. But no, I would just, and it takes so long too. I thought of the thing I'm working on at the minute. I thought I could either get this out this year, or I could, if I was successful, and send it to a traditional publisher and they liked it and they wanted to publish it, it'd be more than a year before it came out. And I've already been working on it for 4 years. So, maybe I'm too impatient. But no, I've self-published, and I'm quite happy to be self-published. And, I'll probably keep going that way. But who knows? I'm open to anything.
And so what platform do you use to self-publish?
Well, I'm on Amazon for my ebooks and my audiobooks. I'm also with Drafted Digital, so that means I go to Apple and Kobo and Barnes and Noble and all of those. My print books are through Ingram Spark, so they're available in libraries. They're available in any bookstore if they order through Ingram Spark. So I'm paperback, ebook, audio.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so if your books were turned into a movie, who would play your main characters?
Ooh,
let's have some fun.
I have to think of famous actors. I know who one of them would be, but I'm trying to think of the main actor in my Arlan's Pledge series. I can't think of his first name. Is it Richard Armitage?
I don't know.
He's an English actor. He when he's younger would probably be Arlan. And his sort of brother, Barn, would probably be Sam Heughan. And now I'm terrible with actors' names. I can see the woman who would be Rhiannon, but I can't think of her name. She was in.
Okay, that'll be your homework assignment, because the next podcast that you go on, you're going to be very prepared. Okay, so why fantasy? Why romantasy? What is it about that genre that just, gets you?
I've always read fantasy, and I like romance. Why? I think I like going to another world. Where all things are possible. I like going to a world where there are dragons and there are griffins and you can talk to your horse and there's magic that works, and it's beautiful scenery. I like those sort of worlds. And I like being there, and I like reading stories that are in there. So I naturally write what I enjoy. It's interesting. The first series I wrote, that first book I wrote, which is Saving Time, I'm like, where did this dystopian story come from? Fantasy, where's it? Anyway, I went with it. But yeah, no, that's what I like to read. That's where I like to be. So that's what I write. And and I like romance. I like watching people fall in love, but I don't. And I'm not knocking anybody who likes this, but I don't like rom-coms, and I don't like soppy stuff. I like people that are hard at work doing something important in their world, and they realize that the person that's standing beside them is the one they love and the one they want, the one they need. I like that kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Um, gosh, I had a question at the tip of my tongue and then I forgot. I hate it when that happens. But okay, let me ask you this. With world building and being creative with everything, like what are the unspoken rules of of romantasy or fantasy writing? Because you can create all the characters, all the worlds that you want, but are there any particular rules that you need to stick to? Um, Otherwise, other romance and fantasy writers might be upset, or the readers might be upset because you're not following a particular rule.
Okay. It has to make sense and it has to be logical, whatever it is. Like your magic has to work, has to be there's a price for using the magic. If you agree with Brandon Sanderson, there's two types of magic. There's a hard mathematical kind of magic that has rules and regs, and then there's a Tolkien type magic that you don't even get told how it works. You just see it. Mine is somewhere in the middle because from my critique partners, they needed a bit of explaining. They weren't quite happy. I think years ago with Tolkien, people were happy to just read and accept, but these days people want to know why and how. So, I have a soft magic that has logic to it, and you see it, you see how it goes and how it works. And with, there's always particular tropes or scenes or situations that your reader in whatever genre it is expects in your story. So like with the romance, there's where they meet, the meet cute. And it goes on to their dark moment where they, will they, won't they? Or something bad's happened, they're not going to get together, but they do in the end, So that is woven in through a fantasy that has a main character meeting their mentor, going on a quest, gathering around them their fellow travelers on this quest, and then there's always the bad guy, always the antagonist, and I like to make my antagonists quite human. Maybe they've just got off on the wrong track. You know what I mean? Maybe something sent them down the wrong path, but they have their wants and their needs and their likes and their dislikes. And I'm hoping that my bad guy characters are realistic and people like them in a way. Because I love writing them. I don't know if this is a reflection of me, but my character, Lord Kieran, I loved writing him. I could be sarcastic. I could be angry. I could be getting annoyed. I could everything that I wanted to do, but, you've got to be nice so you can't. I've got to put in him. I just absolutely loved it. So I tried to make him not just but a real, 3D.
Yeah, as it should be, right? Because we're multidimensional beings, and good or bad, we have a little bit of both. We have our wants, and there's always usually, hopefully, a redeeming quality, even though we may do bad things, right? So I love that. And my mother-in-law, she's an avid reader. She reads all genres. She probably reads about 3 books a week, and she loves fantasy. And because of how prolific she is, I use her as my beta reader, my content reader, and that's her biggest pet peeve, I think, is, making sure things stream along from one series to another, or from one book to another in a series, and that it makes sense. Like you said, with, it has to make sense. The magic has to make sense. The storyline, the plot, whatever, has to make sense. And even the characters, if they're doing something uncharacteristic of their personality, the reader will immediately recognize that. And they're like, no, we don't like that. It's funny how visceral sometimes the reaction can be when they're expecting one thing, and then, we throw a wrench in the transmission. But how does your family support you with your writing? I mean, I imagine that sometimes you lock yourself away from the world. You ignore the family, you don't feed them, whatever.
Well, I didn't start writing till all my family had left home.
Mm.
And that was yeah, I needed to do that. I hadn't realized that's how it was going to go, because I didn't know until they'd left that, oh, I've got time now. I'll get these stories out of my head. Yeah, so it's my poor husband. He feels neglected. No, he doesn't. He's wonderful. I wouldn't be able to do it without Frank. He's with me 100%. He suffers the hours without me while I'm in a world of my own, literally, with characters of my friends in my head, with magic and dragons and other things. And then, I go downstairs and I'm back in the real world with him. But yeah, what was it? A writer's widow or something like. I think there's a term for the spouse of a writer, because there's just so many hours that they do without them, Mm-hmm. But yes, no, my family is very supportive. My husband is also my proofreader. Nothing gets past him. He's really good with the grammar, and like, I am the world's worst speller. I admit it. Thank heavens for spell check is all I can say, because terrible speller. Always been. Look, telling the story is more important than spelling the words.
Yeah, that's what editors are for.
Yeah. So my husband's with me when I do these craft stalls, and he's really, because he's been a minister, he's just so good with people, so we have the back and forwards, and he picks up my sword and he dubs people, he knights people, and we have some good interactions with everybody. But I wouldn't be able to do it without him, because it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of dedication, and it's a lot of sacrifice too. Excuse me. Creativity is a sacrificial activity. We sacrifice our time, sacrifice our money. We, sweat and tears go into our work, and maybe there's only one person's going to read it, but we'll still do it, won't we?
Yeah.
That's what's in us. And see, he gets that. He gets that, He understands that for me. Yeah,
I love it.
And he's the person that's, when I'm like, oh, no one's going to read this. I can't do this anymore. He's the one that's, what would you do if you didn't? So, he just keeps me at it. At the times, he's the one that's, come on, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys act out the battle scenes or anything together?
No. No. Not with him, no. Not with anybody, but in my head. And I used to do martial art. I haven't ever done sword play, but I've watched a lot, and I've studied a lot, like YouTube and all that. That's all wonderful. I know it's not the same as doing it. I have done it like just practicing, and I have figured out this will happen with that. The physics of a fight. But I have a German friend who's also an author. She does HEMA, Historical European Martial Art, and I run my fight scenes past her, and she's like, "You got your hand the wrong way." That's okay. She's left-handed fighter. Oh, all right, So wow. She's really helpful. Yeah, and my family's supportive. They're all on Patreon, supporting me on Patreon, and and I have a very supportive church family and writers group, and of course my critique partners, and one of them, like Stephanie said, we've been together for years, and we're very honest and very gentle with each other. And if it's not working, we'll tell our critique partner that, and we'll get that from them, and that it really does make a difference to your story. And it really is good to have, as a pair of eyes. Somebody else who's a writer looking at what you've got. Particularly one like Stephanie's very good at this particular thing's not working, and then Philip, who's the other guy in the group at the minute, he's really good at seeing the big picture. How's this working? How's this character art working through this whole lot, Jenny? So they've got there, and apparently I have gifts and talents that help them too. So we all help each other. So that's really supportive too, and you do need your support, as you know, because it can be a very lonely course being a writer. I mean, we love locking ourselves away with our characters and our story, and we forget that we need people just as much as our characters need the other characters.
Absolutely. Yeah, writing is a lonely journey, but you do need to have that community to critique and to bounce ideas off and things like that. And you mentioned Stephanie, S.L. Dooley, as one of your critique partners. And, have you been to the US and how did you find your critique team?
Well, I was just looking for, because, the critique group that we're in is called Word Menders, and it's part of the Realm Makers, which is Christian speculative fiction writers. And I was just Googling one day because I wanted to join a group of Christian fantasy writers. So the fantasy comes in within speculative fiction, and I just joined it, and it was like, oh, so do you want to be in one of these critique partner groups? And I just was in. It was just online. That's how I found them. Yeah, and I was very fortunate to be put in Stephanie's group.
I love it. Well, hopefully you come to the US one of these days.
You never know.
Yeah, and if you come to Oklahoma, you have friends.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't happen to have a book nearby. If you want to do a reading, you're welcome to.
Oh, if I want to do a reading.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe pick a couple of pages and give us a little teaser.
What will I do? I might do. Oh wow, I wish I had some warning of this. Let me think. So, do you want the magic or the romance?
Oh, let's do magic.
Magic, okay. I gotta think which more is magic. I'll do magic from the last book, because it's a character that I really like in this, but I've got to find it.
What's the title of the book?
Well, what I'm grabbing at the minute is my Arlan's Pledge series. The first one is of Myths and Portals, Arlan's Pledge book 1. Second one is Warriors and Sages, Arlan's Pledge book 2. And this is the third one that has the battle in it, of High Kings and Mages. And I just have to find the thing I'm thinking of. I'm sorry, I'm wasting time here.
Yeah, no worries. I kind of sprung that on you. While you're looking, what advice would you give to writers who are feeling like they don't have formal training, but they want to put a book out in the world?
Oh, just write. Do buy you need to pay for the craft books. There's plenty of courses online. There's lots of people doing that sort of thing these days. Any course online. I did a university course online. But just write. We're told it is something that you can be told. This is the rule, and that is the rule, and this is the way you do it. But the only way you really learn it is to write. And Amy, they say that it's even 1 million words before you get your writer's voice. So it is something that you just have to do. Bottom on chair, hands clicking keyboard, or writing pen and paper. That's what you do, and keep doing it, because they do say, and you've probably heard it, that an author is just a writer who didn't give up. And if you've got the gift for story, and I think, well, I know story is an innate thing in all us human beings. We just automatically are attracted to story. It's a safe place to learn things. It's a safe place to think about things and experience things. And we just, telling stories around the campfire, reading a book to your kid, just people that are bookworms, but people that watch TV shows, and even go to a football match. That's a story, The games works like a story. So we're attracted to story. So I think authors, novelists, tend to have that innate understanding of story. And I didn't realize I did until I studied story. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. I know that. That's right. That's logical. Yeah, I know that. You know what I mean? And I'd written a few stories before I realized I automatically do that. So most people who are novelists have that innate understanding of stories. So to answer your question, the person what do? They don't have any training. You've probably got it in you anyway. You just need to practice it, and it doesn't hurt to study it at all. So do that and get along with people who know the same thing as you and think the same thing as you, because you do need your support. Yeah,
I agree. You just got to write it, because no one can write it for you. you're meant to be the one that writes it. And then the rest is like editors, critique teams, alpha beta readers, those people come into play to help you. So
yeah. I found some magic.
Okay, let's have some magic.
And I'll probably have to explain a bit before I read you this bit. It's two of the characters I've got in the third book of this series. I'm going to give up. I'm going to give a lot away if I say this, but anyway, it's the daughter of the romantic couple in the first and the second book. It's their daughter, and it's the best mate of the father. And because there's time travel and portal travel involved in this story, he's not an old man, he's a young man, and she's not a baby, she's a grown woman, and he's got to protect her to get her home because he brought her back to the world of Delcaroon. Anyway, they stayed with this lady over the winter, and they've just had to escape because the bad guys have realised where they are and want to find them. So this is Margot Brown, and she has sent them up the hill to the sage hold in the mountain where it's going to be safe. Winter's just coming on, and Lord Kieran, who's the bad guy, his men have discovered where they are, but they've just missed them. So this is them arriving at Margot Brown's. The dull clip-clop of unshod mule hooves travelled to the north. So that's my two characters escaping. But Margot Brown pressed her face into his jacket. The young man's aroma embedded in the warm leather filled her nostrils. It spoke of bravery, dedication, loyalty. Aye, goodness emanated from the warrior. Keep them safe, O God of this world, for ye are the one who made the humble beast they ride. Get it and its precious load up that mount, I beg ye. The sharp clip-clop of shod hooves approached from the direction of the village. She stood tall and grasped the jacket tighter to her breast. A dark horse, coming at a trot, headed down her path, followed by three more, snow beating their long faces and flecking their riders in white. The cloak of the leader flew open in the breeze, revealing an orange Lorraine clan tartan. Sword handles on the backs of all glinted in her lantern's light. Lorraine, the Laird's clan, and now he belonged to Lord Kieran Galloway. Ho, old woman, the lead woman pulled his horse up sharply, its hooves slipping on the snow-sludged pathway. Margot Brown's stomach churned. 'Twas the same clansman warrior whose ear bent to those who would whisper. What do ye seek? Her voice was clear and strong, despite the dampening effect of fall snowing on the sounds around her. The warrior rested a casual arm over the pommel of his saddle, while his horse snorted and flicked its head, tack jingling. Another war horse gave a whinny. And here you have sheltered a couple from the west. Just travellers passing through long enough to repair your dry stone wall, old woman. His gaze lowered to her hands. What have you there? Margot Brown's stomach sank full. She still held the proof of Barnes' recent presence and the oddity of his attire, ensuring some took note. She swallowed and narrowed her gaze. Where are the warrior and the young woman? The clansman demanded. Not here, now go. She lifted her chin. I'll waste my breath on you no longer. She turned her face to the sky. The warrior snorted. It had been many a year, but there are some things a spirit never forgets. Margot Brown concentrated on the snow, each crystal pattern unique and close. In her cleared vision, white fingers extended in shapes and lines. She drew in a quick breath. So beautiful. The frozen falling water spoke of ancient glaciers, their long, slow path marking millennia, and her life's breadth a mere dot in the epoch of their time. Power surged, that for too long was but a memory, shunting the air from her lungs. In her urgency, and using a skill long dormant, its flood into her soul rocked her, but she held firm. What are you doing, old woman? The warrior's voice filtered through the roar in her head. His companions echoed his question with their grunts. Silence, you fools, she thinks. Margot Brown raised her arms. The dark garment she held in her grasp now fell to the snow. O power of the storm, of wind and snow and cold, send forth thy chilly blast, with white their world enfold. Her voice rang true. Stop, woman, the warrior's tone held command. Cover with thy blanket crisp, hide them from all who seek, hide them safe from all who seek. Stop it, I say. Fear edged the warrior's words, and metal rang, his withdrawn blade flashing in the lantern light. Unsheathing swords sang as his companions followed suit. The wind picked up, swirling around her and the warriors. The men gawked as snow bounced from the ground and lifted, joining the frozen water in the air, thickening its presence and impeding their view. Strength in legs and will and sight, Margaret Brain raised her voice above the commanding cries of Galloway's men. Naught will silence me, while blinding eyes of those who might, with dire intentions, deepen plight. Ah, the warrior nudged his steed closer. Margaret Brain locked eyes with the Lorraine clansman warrior. Metal whistled, flashing down, slicing her neck, severing head from torso. A gust of wind brought a wall of white, knocking the warrior from his horse and scattering the jumpy mounts of his companions. Riders shortened reins and shushed their steeds. Margaret Brain's soul lifted. She looked down at her body, now blanketed in white, and sending a fountain of steaming red in rivulets throughout. She rose to face the mountain. A snowstorm whirled around it, the track at its base now covered, blocking any chance of pursuit. The warriors emerging from the snow dump would have no chance to follow. Margaret Brain's soul smiled, her last task complete, then lifted to glorious realms above.
Wow. That was great.
Did you like that?
Oh, that was so visual. I loved it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my love. So what else can we talk about? Is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to promote or talk about?
Right, we'll talk about. I have a website. I have a Patreon page.
Yes. Where can we find you?
Well, my website is www.jennleeswriter.com, and my Patreon is www.patreon.com/C/Jenn Lees Fantasy Author. Okay. And people can support me financially on Patreon, but there's also a free support me on Patreon. And I tend to give my Patreon people a lot more. I give my higher tiers, the ones that sponsor me, I give them my books early. I give them chapters early. I'm doing a novella, which I'm writing a chapter a month, which they're getting as I write it. But also, because I also write poetry and short pieces of fiction, I give that to other, every now and then to my free people, they get something like that too. So I just share more of my work as well as my work early on that. And I just love interacting with people. So, I'd love it if people were responding, and that's good. I love it when I get emails from readers, and yeah.
Well, we'll definitely include your links in the show notes so people can find you and support you. I think my mother-in-law will probably listen to this podcast, and I hope she reads your book. She is a fantasy
Oh, that's good.
fan. Good. I'll tell her about it. But Jenny, thank you so much for joining us today and reminding us that creativity doesn't expire, and that the paths we take begin with the stories that we experience, and they are the ones that have the deepest power. So with that, thank you. And with listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you and you want to learn more, please explore Jennifer Lee's series, Arlan's Pledge and the Community Chronicles, and follow her work as she continues to build worlds rooted in empathy, imagination, and hard-earned wisdom. If you enjoyed this episode on Quixotic Heights, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's standing at the edge of a new beginning. Until next time, keep climbing, because sometimes the most quixotic journeys lead us exactly where we're meant to be. Jenny, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I do hope you come to Oklahoma one day.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you, Amy. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.